Okay, good evening, everyone. As we welcome in Irving Fishbaum, Menachem Yemansky, Mordechai Sultan, Aaron Swade, Mel Zachter, Baruch Ian. Not sure who this is. Philippe, Shelley Zeitlin. That's Nachman Chapler, I believe. Stephen Holtzman, Shimon Klein, Rabbi Kranz, Mo Kushner, Ilya Shutman, Moshe Jackman, Yitzi Fogel. And now we have Shalom Fogel joining us, Richard Rosenzweig on Facebook, David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. And here in the shul, we're joined by Beresh Gesserman, Rich Lenner, Saba, Nadalia Engel, Baruch Weber. We're holding the bottom line of Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, continuing our Harrison Kletzel, just joined us, Sandy Grunfeld, as we are sponsored by Baruch Ian, Le'ilui Nishmas Esther Bas Yoina, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Avram ben Shmuel HaKohen, for Baruch Shlomo ben Lina, and Baruch has a important test tomorrow. So it's Baruch Avraham ben Esther. Baruch Avraham ben Esther, thank you. Baruch Avraham ben Esther. Should have a refuah shleima b'seich sheichel Yisrael by Aaron Swade, whose plaque came. I'm going to send you a picture. It's on the wall, Aaron, the plaque for the chair. Thank you very much. It's already up on the wall. Aaron Swade, Le'ilui Nishmas, Chana Bas Shmuel, his sister Freda Bas Shol, by Shimon Dil for the Choli Adaf and Choli Yisrael, by Mark Frankel for Shalema, for Miriam Sar Bas Tzipora, Chana Bas Gittel Esther, Be'er Kol Vasa, for HaKos HaTov, for what Hashem did for their family and for all Choli Yisrael, for my Shver Avigdoraya ben Rivka, Meir ben Chaya Sari, Yudhizir Bas Miriam, and for Marshall's brother, who is doing very poorly, Mordechai ben Sari Yehudis. They should all have a refuah shleima b'seich sheichel Yisrael. So now the Gemara says an interesting thing, and I think Reb Kramer is just joining us. Yeah, Reb Kramer is joining us. I'd like to see the shul filling up over here. It's hard. It's a hard task to get people to come on a regular basis. Ibailahu. An interesting shaila. When you do honor for your parents, who pays for it? Let's say you have to shovel the snow. So who pays for it? Ibaylu, me shall me. And let's say you have to feed them. You have to give them to drink. Who pays? Who foots the bill? Reb Yudaimer Mishal Ben. Reb Yehuda says it comes from the son's funds. Reb Nassim Ba'aishiyam Mishalav. No, it comes from the parents. He does service, but the money comes from them. I relate Rabbanan Reb Yirmiyah. Rabbanan instructed to Reb Yirmiyah, ve'imru lebrei to Reb Yirmiyah, to the son of Reb Yirmiyah, Kemandiyam Mishalav. The psak is that the funds have to come from the father, from the parents. So the Gemara says, honor your father and your mother. Honor Hashem from your wealth. So we learn out of Gzeir Kibud, Ma'alahalon b'chasaron kis. You have to spend money to do the mitzvahs. Afkan b'chasaron kis. You should have to spend money for Kibud Avaim. V'yamrit mishalav. But if everything comes from the parents, my nafkalei mina, where do you find that a child has to spend funds? Says the Gemara, so the Gemara says, that if he has to do a service for his parents, and then he won't be able to work. His parents said that, we need help, we can't get out in the snow, so he has to come, and he has to get them out of the house. So he's losing the day's work. So in that, there is an element of chesaron kis. Toshma, Beis Achim, two brothers, Shnei Shutfin, two partners, Ha'avu b'nai, a father and a son, Harav v'talmidai, a rebbe and his disciple, Poidin zeh lezeh ma'aser sheni. They could redeem each other's ma'aser sheni without adding the surcharge. In other words, remember we said there's a a surcharge of a fifth if you redeem your own Meiser Sheni. If somebody else redeems it, there's no surcharge. But if you redeem your own Meiser Sheni, there's a surcharge. But the halacha is one partner could do it for another partner, a Rebbe could do it for his Talmud, and a child could do it for the father, or vice versa, without having to pay the surcharge. And not only that, in the third and the sixth year, when you give Meiser Ani, so if a parent is poor, you could give the parent your Meiser Ani. Umachilin zeh lezeh Meiser Ani. But wait a second. If kibbud of aim is from the son, then by giving him Meiser Ani, he's paying up his debts with Meiser Ani, which you're not allowed to do. V'yamrit Mishel Ben, if it's coming from the son, Nimsa zeh poirei achayva, he's taking care of his own responsibility using the mammon of Aniyim, Mishel Aniyim, using Meiser Ani. Says, well, like tzricha lahadafa. The chiddush is that he could use the Meiser Ani for extras. In other words, extras that the son would not be mechuyev to take care of. He could give the Meiser Ani for extras. Says the Gemara, Ihachi, if so, Hainu diktani Allah, it says, Amar Reb Yehuda Tovo Me'era, there is a curse. Lamisha Macheles Aviv Meiser Ani, one who gives to a parent Meiser Ani, but if he's giving extras, why should there be a curse? If he gives the basics, so then that's a curse that he gives his parents from Mammon of Tzedakah. But the Ila Hadafa, but if it's the extras, then my nafka mina, why should it be a problem? Says the Gemara, Afilu Hachi Zila Be'emilsa. It's still degrading to give to a parent from tzedakah funds. That's good degrading. Tajma, Shalu es Rebbe Eliezer, they inquired of Rebbe Eliezer, Ad heichon kibbud of. How far does kibbud of extend? Ad heichon kibbud of aim. Until how far does kibbud of aim extend? So the Gemara tells us, Amalahen, he said to them, Kidei sheyitol arniki, it extends that even if a parent takes your purse, v'yizrekenu liyam b'fanav, and throws it in the sea in your presence, v'einay machlimay, and you don't embarrass them. But if the parent is going to have to reimburse you, then why should you get upset? They throw the purse inside, they throw the purse in the yam, they have to reimburse you. V'yamrit mishalav, and if it comes from the parent, my nafkalei mina. Says the Gemara, you know why? B'roi liyarshay, where you're the Irish. So even though the parent is going to pay you, but since that money is eventually going to go to you, you're upset that it's being wasted. And yet you can't say anything. Now the Maisa is, the Gemara's kasha is not such a big kasha anyway. Because even if they reimburse you, but still, you know, it's a natural thing to say, what an idiotic thing to do, to throw it, you're wasting money. But the Gemara says it's even more, because since that's funds that you could have gone to you really feel that it's being wasted. The Chihad the Rabba Bar Rav Huna, like the example where Rav Huna tested his son. He wanted to see if his son had control of his anger. Rav Huna kara shiroi b'anpei Rabba Barei. He tore expensive silk in the presence of Rabba, his son. He wanted to see, he was testing his temperament. You know, he knows that in marriage, it's good to go into marriage without being losing your cool. Very, very important thing. One of the ways that you test a person is b'kisai, b'kaisai, b'kasai. One of the ways you test a person is by their temperament. And he wanted to see how his temperament is. So says the Gemara, v'chihad Rabba barafuna, the Ravuna kora shiroi ba'anpei Rabba brei. He tore silk in the presence of Rabba his son. Amar, and he said, Ezel ichse, let me see irasach iloi rasach, if he's going to get angry or not. Says the Gemara, but how could he take a chance? Maybe the child will get angry at him and he'll be over on what we just said is a detraction of Yira, Ishima Aviv Tiro, Vidilma Rasach, and then the father, by causing him to get angry, he'll be over on causing him to do a sin, and you're not allowed to cause a Jew to do a sin. Says the Gemara, Demachalei liyakre, where beforehand he was meichel. An interesting concept. A father could be meichel on his covet. And indeed, in Shulchan Aruch, it's brought down that parents should always be meichel their children. It's a very important thing. It says, Kabed es avicha ve'esimecha l'man yarichon yomecha. So the Mamloyes asks, but we're supposed to serve Hashem shelo manas l'kabel pras. So why does the Torah offer us the reward? So the Mamloyes answers, it's miklal hey not to shemei alav, to tell you, but if you don't honor, it could shorten your life. And therefore the Mefarshim say, since chas v'shalom, a child's life could be shortened, if the child doesn't do kibbut of aim, then the parent should always be meichel. Because no parent wants a child to get hurt because of them. So the Gemara says, okay, so there's no problem with the either, but v'ha ka'aver mishum bal tashchis, but he was over bal tashchis, by ruining the silk. And it seems to be that the Gemara felt that the chinuch of training him didn't warrant destroying good silk. You have to figure out a different test. So the Gemara says, no, the Ovid labor from Bainei. He did it along the seam. So it was repairable. So it wasn't Baltashkas. Says the Gemara, Vidilma Mishum Hachi Loi Rasa. So maybe because of that he didn't get angry. Because he saw it was on the seam. So he knew it wasn't such a terrible thing. Says the Gemara, the Ovid labor Bishas Riskei. He did it while Rabbah was already upset about something else. So when he was already upset, when you're upset, you're not perceptive. When you're upset, you don't take note of things. And therefore, when he did it, he wanted to see that now that Rabbah was a little bit hotter under the collar already, so maybe now, when he sees him ripping the silk, he'll get even more angry. And he wasn't worried that he'll notice that it was along the seam, because since he was angry already, he wouldn't notice that. I can't stop in the middle of a train of thought.
I just want to get your attention.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
When a person destroys anything of value, he's ever about tashkas?
An extension of the lav of baltashkas of trees is destroying usable items.
Anything of value.
Anything that's usable. So therefore, like for example, if somebody in a fit of anger, in a fit of rage, throws a watch and smashes it, they're over baltashkas. Masne le Rav Yecheskel l'Ramei brei. Rav Yecheskel taught Rami his son, if you have different people on death row, hanisrafim b'niskalim, those that were going to get burnt, somebody slept with his mother-in-law, he has to get burning, and got mixed up with people that were Mechal Shabbos. So now that they got mixed up, you don't know what's what. So what do you give them? Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Yadoinu b'skila. You judge them with stoning, because stoning is less than burning. Sha'asreifa chamura. Now when it says hanisrafim b'niskalim, those that burned got mixed up with those that were to be stoned, that means that those that are to be stoned was the majority. So Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Berei, so Rabbi Yehuda, his son, said, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Cheskel's son, said, Abba, lo tisnaye hachi. Don't teach that way. Because you say that they get stoned because stoning is more lenient, so you can't take a chance of giving the person that was supposed to get the more lenient one, the more stringent one. So you give them all the more lenient one. What do you have to say that? Since the majority is stoning, so you give the majority. My year is Sreifa Chamura, Tefekle Deruba Niskalaninu. The majority of them are to be stoned. Elohachi Yisnaye, teach it the other way around. HaNiskalim b'nisrafim. If those that are stoned got mixed up with those that are burned, so that since the majority is burning, we should go bust to the majority and give them all burning. Still, we do stoning because that's more lenient. Amalei ihachi ema seifa v'chachamim aimrim. The chacham say yadainoi b'sreifa. We give sreifa shaskila chamura because the stoning is more chamer. So, but according to you, if it's going to say niskalim and nisrafim, why do you have to say that we give them sreifa because skila is chamura? We give them sreifa because the majority is sreifa. My year, you're the skila chamura. Why do you have to say the reason is that skila is more chamur? We give them sreifa because the majority is burned. Teifiklei deruba nisrafim. So the son explains, Amalei Hasam Rabbanan hu de ka'amrulei l'Reb Shimon. The Rabbanan that say to Reb Shimon, de ka'amrit sreifa chamura, that which you say, that sreifa is more chamer, and if sreifa would be more chamer, then even if the sreifa was the majority, we wouldn't give them sreifa. Lo skila chamura, stoning is more chamer. Now notice, he said, Father, don't teach like that. So Amalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, so Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinana, sharp one, Lo temelei la'avu chachi. Don't tell your father, don't teach that way. The Tanya Harishaya Aviv Iver al Divrei Torah. If your father was transgressing a sin, you saw him putting on shatnez, Al Yomi, don't tell him Abba avart al Divrei Torah. Don't say, Father, you're transgressing the Torah. It's not respectful. Ella amalei Abba kach kasa b'Torah. Now, he thought he said it to him, kach kasa b'Torah? Is that what it says in the Torah? So the Gemara says, if you talk to your father that way, kach kasa b'Torah, tzurei kamitzarle. That's definitely going to aggravate him. Ella amalei, you should tell him matter of factly, Abra mikra kasa b'Torah kach. There is a pasuk in the Torah of leisil b'shatnez. In other words, don't say that you're transgressing, and therefore you can't say, don't teach that way. You could say a reason, you could say, well, it would work better to say this way, but you can't say, don't teach that way.
In this case here, he asked him a kasha on how he learned it. He's showing him why he's wrong. Again,
he can't say, don't teach that way. He has to go roundabout. He could say something like, this way would work. But you can't say, don't teach that way. That's contradicting a parent. Now, let's say Abba Omer, Elazar ben Masya Omer, Abba Omer Ashkeni Mayim. Your father says, give me a drink. O mitzvah lasais. And there's a mitzvah to be done. There's an Erev to put up. Maniach ani k'feid Abba. I put aside the covet of the father, and I do the mitzvah. Why? Because the same thing, remember we said if a father asks something and a mother asks something, you do what the father asked, because you and your mother are chayiv in the honor of the father. So if your father asks and Hashem asks, so you do what Hashem asks, because you and your father are chayiv in the honor of Hashem. So that's what the Gemara says. Shani va'abba chayavim b'mitzvah. Both I and my father have to do what Hashem wants. However, Isi Ben Yehuda says it depends. If your father says, bring me a cup of water, and somebody says, could you deliver this package to Tomchei Shabbos? But somebody else could deliver the package to Tomchei Shabbos. So, im efshir l'mitzvah li'asais al yedei acherim, if it's possible for the mitzvah to be done by somebody else, or we could also add, if it's possible for the mitzvah to be done afterwards, then tias al yedei acherim, let it be done by others, v'yeh lechu b'kvayid aviv, and he should go and take care of the honor of his father. Amar Rav Masna, that's halach Isi Ben Yehuda. The law is like Isi Ben Yehuda. In this way, the mitzvah is like the relationship of Torah to other mitzvahs. We said that if a person is learning Torah and somebody says, could you deliver a package to Tomchei Shabbos? If somebody else could deliver the package to Tomchei Shabbos, then you continue learning. If it's a mitzvah, sheyachal asas hayedei you continue learning. So if it's a mitzvah, sheyachal asas hayedei acherim, you do the kibbut avein. A father that forgives his honor, his honor is forgiven. Harav shemachal al kvaydai, a Rebbe that forgives his honor, ain't kvaydai machal. However, Rabbi Yosef Amar afilu harav shemachal al kvaydai machal. Even a Rav that forgives his covet is forgiven. Shenemar v'Hashem hoylech lefneim yaimam. We see that Hashem went before Klal Yisrael, leading them, acting as an escort. So even Hashem was Michael on his covenant. It's his world, but Torah delay. It's his Torah. So he could be Michael his honor. But over here, is Torah delay? Is the Torah the property of the Talmud Chacham, of the Rav, that he can be Michael on the covet of the Torah? But Hada Rava, Amar Rava, yes, when you learn Torah and you dedicate yourself to the Torah becomes yours. In Torah Dilehi, in his Torah, he meditates day and night. When you work on Torah, you make it yours. You make it yours. A person comes out late in the night, relatively late in the night, and sits and learns every night. He makes the Torah his. I should say that we shouldn't squander the fact that it's the last day of the year. So by learning now and being mekayim the mitzvah of dibar tabam, which is shakal keneged kol ha-mitzvahs shebetayra, and using the time of the last day of the year, every minute of the last day of the year, it says with the last day of the year you could correct all the days of the year. So every minute that we use is mamish, is so precious. So the Gemara says, Ini, is it so that a Rav could be Michael on his covet? Rava was serving as the bartender. He gave drinks by the wedding of his son. And he gave a drink to Rav Papa and Rav Huna B'rei Rabbi Yeshua. And they stood up for him. L'Rav Moriu l'Rav Pinchas B'rei Rav Chisda. He gave a drink for Rav Mori and Pinchas, the son of Rav Chisda. And they didn't get up and ikbid. And he was makbid. V'amar hanu rabbanan v'hanu rabbanan lav rabbanan. I don't understand. He said, these rabbis that didn't stand up for me, they're rabbanim, and these rabbis that did stand up for me are lav rabbanim. They're not rabbanim. They're also rabbanim. And you see, they stood up for me. Now here, it would seem that Rava was being meichel on his covet by being a bartender, and yet he expected them to stand up for him. V'sura Papa v'mashke behilula da'aba marbrei. Rapapa was giving drinks by the wedding of Abba Mar, his son. V'dolule kosel Rabbi Yitzchak Ber Rabbi Yehuda, and he gave a drink to Rabbi Yitzchak Ber Rabbi Yehuda. V'loy kamen kabei, and he didn't get up. V'ikpid. So we just said that Rava himself says that you can be meichel on the Kavod HaTorah. Says the Gemara, even though you could be meichel on the Kavod HaTorah, but you should still pick yourself up a little bit. You should still give some kind of hiddur. As the Gemara says, afilu acher hiddur mi'avedlei. Hiddur mi'avedlei boy. You should still pick yourself up a little bit and show some respect, show some attempt, and because they didn't do it, that's why Rava was makbid, that's why Rav Papa was makbid. What do you want to ask?
Ikbid means he became angry?
Ikbid means he showed that he minded.
Because we haven't picked up his leha cup, then...
No. Ikbid here means that he showed that he minded. He gave a little bit like a grimace. It basically is to show that this is not behavior that should be repeated. Amar Rav Ashi, afilu l'man yoma harav shemochel al kvoidei mochel. Even a man yama that says that if a rebbe is meichel on his covet is meichel, but nasi shemochel al kvoidei, if the prince of Klal Yisrael, the nasi is meichel on covet, ain't kvoidei mochel. So the Gemara says meisvei. There was an incident where Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shua, and Rabbi Tzaddik were reclining at the wedding of the Bnei Shel Rabbi Gamliel, of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. Now Rabbi Gamliel was a Nasi, and they were reclining by the wedding of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Gamliel was serving them, was giving them drinks. Nasan akaislu Rabbi Eliezer, he gave a cup to Rabbi Eliezer, v'loy notlu, and Rabbi Eliezer didn't take it. Nasan Rabbi Yeshua, he gave it to Rabbi Yeshua, but Rabbi Eliezer didn't want to take it. He didn't want to take from the Nasi. He didn't feel it was respectful. Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi. Nasan Rabbi Yeshua, he gave it to Rabbi Yeshua, v'kibloi. So Rabbi Eliezer was surprised. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, mazeh Yeshua. Anu Yeshua, is it proper that we should sit Rabbi Gamliel Ayman Mashka Leinu, and Rabbi Gamliel the Nasi should be standing and serving us? So Amalei, so he said, look, Matzino Gadol Mimenu, we find more than this. Avram Gadol Hadaraya, Avram Avinu was the Gadol Hadar, because of who Ayman Aleim, and he stood and served 3 Arabs. So you'll say, maybe he recognized they were malachim. That they appeared like angels. They only appeared as Arabs. We know that because he told them to wash their feet, suspecting that they worshipped the dust of their feet. If Avram could serve Arabs, then we, who we're also Talmidei Chacham, Rabbi Gamliel could serve us. Amalem Rabbi Tzaddik, so Rabbi Tzaddik said, why did you have to bring a raya from Avram Avinu? Bring a raya from Hashem, that Hashem serves us. Why do you forsake the honor of Hashem, and you discuss about Avram Avinu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ma'ashiv Ruchais, he brings wind. Omala Nesiim, and he brings up the vapor from the excess vapor from the water. Omorid Mater, and it brings down more water. Omatzmiach Adama, and it causes the herbs to grow. V'oirech shulchan l'fnei kol echad ve'echad, and sets a table of apples and vegetables, and carrots, and cucumbers, and avocados, and berries. And if Hashem could serve us, v'anu lo yehi Rabbi Gamliel b'Rebbe ayman amashka aleinu, so the Gemara says, you're right. A Nasi could also be Michael his covenant. Eli yitmar, hachi yitmar. If something was said, it was said as follows. Amar Rav Ashi, afilu l'man diyam and Nasi shemachal al kvoidei kvoidei machal. that the Nasi who is Meichel on his covered Machal. Melech shemachal al kvoidei. If the king is Meichel on his covered, ain't kvoidei machal. Shenema same tosim alecha melech. You should place upon you a king. Shetehei a mosai alecha. His fear should be upon you. Now, we're going to learn now. Yeah.
You put a cup down in front of him. Not to take the cup is somewhat of an insult.
The question is they should say, please don't serve us. We'll get up and we'll serve. That's the proper behavior. If you don't want to, if he's not meichel, if he can't be meichel on his covered, you should say, please, for your covered, please sit down and we will serve. Now, we're going to be learning about covered HaTorah now. As a preface to this sugya, I once heard, many years ago, I had this chiyah. Everybody knows Rav Asher Weiss from Eretz Yisrael, the Minchas Asher. He's famous, my cousin. His shiurim are renowned. He has 6 brothers. One of his brothers married the Friedeke Kozma Rebbe's daughter, the Shefa Chaim's daughter. He was, I think, headlined on the cover of the Ami magazine a few weeks ago. Rav Elyashiv called him a Sar HaTorah. He's an amazing guy. Every one of the brothers are amazing Talmidei Chacham. The oldest brother is Rabbi Binyamin Weiss, who is the chief rabbi of Montreal. And many years ago, when he was before he became chief rabbi of Montreal, when he was the Rav of the Sanzer Shtibel in Bnei Brak, he was a guest for us on Shabbos. My previous Rebbetzin Aleh Shalom Mem Libby hosted him. He was here without his wife. He was here for a Shabbos, and I honored him in my shul to speak by Shalosh Shudas. And I remember him saying that it's a big problem that it's hard for Rabbanim to talk about Kavod HaTorah because it sounds self-serving. Kavod HaTorah, that means you got to honor me. It sounds self-serving. He says, and the Balabatim lose out tremendously. Because Kavod HaTorah is a tremendous mitzvah. Gemara Megillah tells us that even though Torah is Keneged Kulam, but Kavod HaTorah is greater than Limud HaTorah. It's why when we call you up to Aliyah by the Sefer, Yamai Rebbe Gedalia Shlishi, we call it an Aliyah. Why is it an Aliyah? So in the olden days, the bima would be elevated. So that literally you had to go up. And all the old shuls in the Catskills, all the old shuls, the Woodridge Shul, South Fallsburg Shul, the Ellenville Shul, all the old shuls, the bima is elevated. So it's an aliyah because you got to go up. But that's not the main reason. The main reason is that when you get called up to the Sefer and you're publicly giving honor to the Torah in front of the whole congregation, when you make a bracha on the Torah, you're doing something that's even greater than learning Torah. So there's nothing more that you could do that's better. Whatever you're doing, it's an aliyah. Even if you were sitting and learning and they call you up, it's an aliyah. The mitzvah of end, it promises a reward that is an amazing reward. It says, "Mipnei seva tokem v'darta pnei zaken." Stand up for a Talmid Chacham. V'yareisa me'elekecha. Says the Gemara, you'll be blessed with more Yira Shemayim. That's why there's a famous Gemara. There was an Amira who wasn't feeling well. So he didn't have the strength to learn. So he said, I'm going to go sit by the door, and I'll stand up when the rabbis go in and out, and I'll get reward. So asks the Bnei Yissaschar, very simple question. We're not supposed to do things for reward. It makes it sound like, I'm going to chop. It's like a cash register. I'm going to chop, bing, bing, another one pass, bing, bing. We're not supposed to do that. So he answers, for this reward, you could do it. For the reward of more Yiras Hashem, that you could do. To get more, you know what it means to get more Yiras Hashem? There are people that say, what could I do? I don't feel anything. You need to ask a person why they're talking. I don't feel that it's anything special in Shul. I don't feel it. If I felt it, it's one thing, but I don't feel it. How do you get to feel it? Shokavat Torah, the reward is v'yireisim elokech. There's more Yiras Hashem.
Before we go on, can I ask a quick question on what we just learned? But because we said Melech Shemarch al Kvodo and Kvodo Machol, why didn't Gemara use the same argument for Kadosh Baruch Hu?
That's because that would be an argument, except that there's a pasuk. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, I want you to do this for a melech. He didn't say it by himself. By a melech, there's a gzeres hakosov, some tosim melecha. Now, so says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Mipnei Seva Tokim. Before an old man, you should stand up. Yochel afilu mipnei zoken ashmoi. I might think even. Now there's a shaila how to translate zoken ashmoi. We'll learn it means from the lashon of shaming. That means even an empty zoken. An empty zoken. His biggest scholarship is that he read the 7 books of Harry Potter. Or he knows the batting average of Don Mattingly. That's his biggest scholarship. That's an empty man. It's really sad. I was once by a levaya, and a boy got up to be maspid his father. He shouldn't have got up, but this was a shul that they let the children be maspid no matter what. And the boy got up. My father knew a good steak and a beer. That's what he said at the funeral. His father appreciated a good steak and a beer. That's a zaken. I'm not saying he was, but that's a zaken hashmoi. So do you stand up for such a person? His head is full of his head is full of the racetrack. So it says, Talmud Laim is zaken. No, you only stand up for a zaken. Vein zaken ella, and a zaken is only a chacham, because we learn out of Gzeir Shabbos. Shenemer isvoli shivim ish miziknei Yisrael. Gather me 70 people. Moshe Rabbeinu said from the Ziknei Yisrael, from the Ziknei Yisrael, which is Yisro's advice, from the Ziknei Yisrael, from the people that know how to learn. Rabbi Yisrael Glili, you don't need the Gzeir Shabbos. Zaken is a composite of Zekana Chachma. Ein Zaken elami shekana Chachma. Shenemer Hashem kanani reishis darkei. Hashem acquired wisdom at the beginning of his way. Now, Zaken is Zekana Chachma. Says the Gemara, Yochel Yamod mipanav mimokam rachik. I think you have to stand up already when you see him far away. Stand up when it's implicit that it's reverence. We only say you have to stand up where it's clear that you're standing up from him. If he's far away, you might stand up because you didn't have the zitzfleish to sit anymore. Right? It's only hidder when he's close by. Yachal Yahadrenu b'moment. Maybe it's telling you 2 things. Mipnei Seva Tokim, stand up, and also Vadarta. Give him cash. Give him presents. Talmud Leimer Tokim Vadarta. Maki Moshe Ein Bach Yisar and Kiz. Just like getting up doesn't cost anything. So also reverence is something that doesn't cost anything. Says the Gemara, but that's not mukhrach. Sometimes standing up could cost you something. If you're in the middle of doing a very big job. Says the Gemara, the Gemara is going to ask that later. I might think you should give honor even when you're naked in the bathhouse. That's not really honor. Or it's in the lavatory in the bathhouse. Talmud Leimer Tokam Vadarta, Loyamarta Kima is only getting up in a place of reverence. A bathhouse where everybody's naked, there's no reverence. If you don't want to stand up, I might think that you could close your eyes, and then you'll say, look, when he came within the Dalamas, I didn't see him. Talmud Leimer Tokam v'yaresa. Stand up v'yaresa melikecha. Dover hamoser l'leiv. Hashem knows that it's not that your eyes were closed. He knows that you were trying to avoid standing up. So you're not supposed to do that. Hashem knows what's really in your heart. How do we know that a zaken should not trouble the people to stand up? If he could take a circuitous route so that the people shouldn't stand up, so then he should do that. Talmud Leimer zaken v'yaresa. Hashem sees if the person is into self-aggrandizement or he's trying to save people from trouble. There's a famous Maisa. It's in the book of the biography of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, that Rav Schneur Kotler was coming into the Aguda convention with Rav Yaakov. And to get in, to go to the dais, the whole olam, 1,000 people would have to stand up. So Reb Schneur said, it says that you should try not to trouble people. We could walk in the kitchen and climb on the dais from behind. So Reb Yaakov says, no, we're marching in right in the middle. So Reb Schneur said, why? Because our wives are in the audience. And they sacrifice a lot for our involvement in the klal, and therefore they deserve to get the honor. So Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky. Isi ben Yehuda Aimer, Mipnei Seva Tokam, he disagrees. Afilu kol Seva Mamashme, even an old man, even an old man on the bus. Rabbi Yosef Glili says that now the Gemara starts analyzing this. Both say that Seva, that Zaken, means somebody who learns Torah. So Rabbi Yosef Glili says it from Zekana Chachma, and the Tanakama says it from learning it out from Gzeir Shava, from the Shivim Zakein. So Rabbi Yosef Glili, Hainu Tanakama, says the Gemara, Ike benayu yonik v'chacham, when he's a young scholar. Tanakama saw yonik v'chacham loy, because you learn it out from Isam Li Shivim Zakeinim. Those were elders. Rabbi Yosef Glili Savar, it's Zaken is Zekon Chachma, Afilu Yonik V'Chacham. Now, my time with Rabbi Yosef Glili, why does Rabbi Yosef Glili learn it's even a young man? Amalach Isal Kedaita Kidikama Tanakama, Im Kein Nichtav Rabmana, Mipnei Seva Zaken Tokim Vadarta. It should say one thing, Seva Zaken. It shouldn't say, it has two things. Seva Tokim Vadarta Pnei Zaken. Maishna the Pelgina Rambanan. Why, Rachman? Why does the Torah divide it? Lamemer the Haylav Hay, Haylav Hay. One's an older person, one's a younger person. Shmami Noah, Afilu Yonik V'Chacham. But Tanakami, you know why it splits it up? Mishum Deboy Mismach Zokein to be Yeresa. Because it wants to say the reason why it puts Zokein later, and it doesn't say Mipnei Seva Zokein, is because it wants to say Zaken next to you, you erase it to tell us the halacha that we learned that the Zaken should try not to trouble people. The Tanakama my time. And why does the Tanakama not learn like Rabbi Yossi Aglili? Isal Kedaita Kedekama Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that it's two separate things, an old man and a young man, that's a Chacham. Imkei Nichtav Rachmana, then the Torah should say, Mipnei Seva Tokim Vadarta, one thing, an old person, Tokim Vadarta Pnei Zaken. Umedaloi Kasavachi, since it doesn't say by both, the halacha Shmami Noach Chadu, it's one and the same. It's an old person that has Torah knowledge. Now, we're going to learn two blot now, Rabbi, so we're going to learn another blot. Its second blot is even easier than the first blot, so it shouldn't take too long